Rachel, what kind of impact has this domestic violence case against the sheriff had on advocates for the victims?
It's really galvanized this community, really from the get-go. The thing that made them most angry was on his swearing-in day on January 8th, Ross Mirkarimi said that this case that's involving allegations that he was abusive to his wife, grabbed her arm, caused bruising on New Year's Eve. He addressed reporters on a swearing-in day and said, it's a private matter, it's a family matter. And that right there got people furious. So what we saw this week, as was mentioned in the intro, was that they raised more than $5,000 to put up a billboard in the south of Market, 4 blocks from the Hall of Justice, where Mirkarimi will be facing trial next week, that says domestic violence is never a private matter. They hope to raise a few more $1,000 to also put a Spanish language billboard up. They're saying that just that comment alone set the whole idea of domestic violence back a decade or two before law enforcement community took it seriously, before it was really something that there was supposed to be zero tolerance for. Ross Mirkarimi and his attorney at the time said, my comments were taken out of context. That wasn't what I meant. I was just talking about my family. Let my family deal with what we're dealing with. The family don't air all our dirty laundry. But they're saying you should never use those words. So in that sense, it's galvanized. They've had protests at City Hall. They've been meeting with Mayor Ed Lee. They've been kind of keeping the drumbeat going on this. And as we said, the billboard was the latest.
And is this a large group or just a small group that gotten together to take this on?
There's something in the city in San Francisco called the Domestic Violence Consortium, and this brings together the people who do the shelters, who do advocacy work. And one of the interesting things is even San Francisco's jails have a very robust domestic violence program for the inmates to try to hold themselves accountable, make reparations, apologize to their victims, really work with them on there. So there are people involved in that as well who are in this consortium. I'd say there are a couple of dozen people who are at this billboard unveiling, but it's a very narrow sidewalk in the south of Market. But it is a strong group that's been around for a while, and they want to make sure that the message that people aren't complacent about domestic violence. And we have to remember these are crimes that happen largely behind closed doors. You don't know about it. It's not something that's not a street mugging or something.
And what's so interesting about this case is these are 2 very high-profile people. Ileana Lopez, an actress well-known in Venezuela, and of course Ross Mirkarimi, so well-known in San Francisco. First of all, why have there been so few supporters coming forward for Mirkarimi? We've heard Art Agnos, but this is a guy who's been in public life a long time. Right. Not a lot of voices here.
That's an interesting question. So Mirkarimi, before he was sheriff, was a member of the Board of Supervisors for 7 years, high profile. He did the plastic bag ban in San Francisco. He was also one of the founding members of the California Green Party, worked for Matt Gonzalez when he was running for mayor. So he has been around for a while, and there has been a lot of silence. And I think that's another thing that's making some of the victims advocates upset about it. Now, let's say very clearly from the get-go, he is innocent until proven guilty.
And there's been no trial.
He has said he is not guilty. He's pleaded not guilty to 3 misdemeanor charges involving this alleged incident. His wife, Ileana Lopez, has said publicly as well that her husband did not do it. So the only high-profile person we've seen, as you've said, who's come around is former Mayor Art Agnos. In fact, Mirkarimi has a stay-away order from his wife, and he's spending some of his time with him. But it's a very difficult case for public officials. Very quickly, the mayor of San Francisco and the Board of Supervisors might be called upon at some point to judge his fate. They could try to remove him from office. So they legally should stay out of this.
The whole issue of domestic violence has risen to another level, and that is a big debate going on in Washington about the federal laws.
Right. I mean, this is very interesting. It's called the Violence Against Women Act, that was passed first time in 1992 when Bill Clinton was president. Always received a lot of bipartisan support. This gives federal money to help on things for domestic violence, for stalking, sexual assaults. It's everything for education, to help people find safe houses, rape kits. You could go down the list of things. Well, this time, just about a week ago, the Senate Judiciary Committee passed it out, but every Republican on that committee voted against it. Now, they say, look, we're not against helping victims of domestic violence. What they didn't like were 3 provisions in this. One, it had more programming for gays and lesbians. It's saying you cannot discriminate against gay and lesbian victims of domestic violence in your programs. It would increase the number of visas that are here for undocumented immigrants who might be victims of domestic violence, so they can stay in the country legally, and it also, for the first time, would give Indian tribes jurisdiction over non-Indians if there's domestic violence cases on their properties. So the Republicans said, who were against this, saying, if you take those out, we'll be fine with it. We'll go to the floor for a full Senate vote.
So
but that
what's
yet.
the final day to get something passed out?
That hasn't been announced yet when that's going to happen, but it looks like it will still probably pass. There is a Republican co-sponsor, Democrat co-sponsor. As I've said in the past, it's been on almost unanimous vote, I believe. What's going to be interesting to see if there's going to be some movement in taking out some of these most controversial provisions.
Well, we'll stay with Washington and move with Washington via California in this case, though, talking about the president's visit here this week.
That's right.
One big, fast, fat fundraising day.
Yeah, absolutely right. You were there, Belva, at the Masonic Auditorium, where really the message this week was "Show me the money." That was Barack Obama's message to California. He picked up, $8 million on this fundraising trip. Just a lot, most of it in high dollar amounts. $35,000, $800 a plate in San Francisco for 2 different events. In one event, he only spent 10 minutes speaking, actually, to the actual people. And the other event, they didn't get to hear Al Green and him do a duet. I mean,
Al Green was there to sing.
Al Green was there to sing, but I mean, you have to
we have to tell people what that's about.
Yeah, you have to give the big donors some love. That's what it was all about. But Obama also did a huge fundraiser at the Masonic. 3,000 people were there. You saw that one, and really the message for the president is going up and down California, repeating is, look, you wanted change in 2008. I haven't been able to give you everything you want, but who's more for the middle class? Who's more for the goals that ending the wars, creating infrastructure, protecting the environment? That's what I'm for, and the Republicans are not going to get that done. That is his message in California.
Was he also campaigning for passage of his budget that is now?
Well, that was certainly
Congress?
part of the speeches that he gave. We saw him at the Masonic Auditorium talk about some of the goals, and the budget is a tough situation. And actually, that one went through this week. Not a lot of attention because there was a lot of back and forth in Washington over the payroll tax, and of course, Obama was out of town fundraising. But the fact is, there's some issues in the federal budget that are concerning to many people, including many progressives who were out there in front of the Nob Hill Masonic. Obama did a lot of things in San Francisco. He wasn't just there. He made some stops in Chinatown and other places too.
I just want to ask, when you talk about budget, I mean, we're going to talk about the campaign budget. I heard you also say that this is going to be a $1 billion, with a B, billion-dollar campaign for president of the United States.
That's what they're expecting to raise. I mean, we're talking about with these super PACs. And that is what Jay Carney, the White House press secretary, said on the way here. Look, they have got to raise a lot of money. The Republicans are doing it on their side. And now Obama has given his blessing to this as well, while originally complaining about it. The fact is, we don't know. He had an event with 20 high-profile people who paid $35,000. We don't know who those people were, and no reporters were allowed to sit in on those events.
There's been such a change in the way presidential candidates deal with the media. Media gets very little access. I was there. Most reporters got nowhere near the president.
That's absolutely right, Belva. You saw that, and I think it's very extraordinary. I've covered since Clinton, who used to come in San Francisco. Local reporters were always given access. Even Bush, I have to say, who never actually set foot in the city, did give access. This trip was extraordinary. The president went to Chinatown. Local reporters were never told, and were not near him on those events, and on those high-dollar fundraisers. No local reporters were allowed in. That really is extraordinary.
So I thought that was interesting in the Chinese restaurant, though. The patrons who were there, who didn't know the president was going to walk in there, they pulled out their smartphones and were taking the videos of it, which went viral on YouTube and went to the media thing. And it's like,
I think part of this is all of the candidates. This is the town where Obama always is confronted with protest hecklers. There's Code Pink, environmental groups. This is the place where he did the guns, people clinging to their guns and gods, etc.
But the environmental groups had sort of an upper hand there in terms of how they looked in demonstrating.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had people dressed as polar bears out in front. You saw them talking about drilling in the Arctic. You had the Code Pink people who interrupted his speech twice. this is a town where he always gets protests, and I think that's one of the reasons for the very tight press. I think they're afraid of one of those YouTube moments here.
Well, a little bit more on the president and the environment coming up, because that's part of the cuts that he's going to be making in this new budget proposal.